Ladies and gentlemen, picture this. You're the president of South Africa. You've just had what can only be described as a tense meeting with Donald the J. Trump. And let's be honest, most meetings with Trump these days seem to fall somewhere between tense and what just happened. And then suddenly everyone is talking about songs. Not the kind of songs that make you want to dance at a braai, but the kind that make diplomats reach for their phones and journalists start typing furiously. This is exactly what happened when President Cyril Ramaphosa found himself defending the phrase "kill the Boer" as a liberation chant following discussions with the Trump administration about what they perceive as violence against white minorities in South Africa. And yes, in case your intrusive thoughts are kicking you at the back of the head, yes, I wear formal clothes all the time. Yes, I always wear a tie. What does it bother you for? But anyway, it's the kind of situation that makes you wonder, how did we get here? And more importantly, where do we go from here? To understand this controversy and stop looking at my tie, we need to take a trip back in time. Not the fun kind of time travel where you get to meet dinosaurs or see what fashion looked like in the 1920s, but to the messy, complicated, often painful kind where you have to grapple with apartheid South Africa. The phrase in question emerged during the anti-apartheid struggle as part of liberation songs that were sung at rallies, protests, and gatherings. These weren't just catchy tunes people hummed while doing the dishes. They were expressions of resistance, frustration, and defiance against a system that classified people by race, which was disgusting, and treated the majority of the population, known as the black people, as second-class citizens in this country. In this context, Boer wasn't just referring to any white person, but specifically to the oppressive system and those who enforced it. You know what I'm saying? It was part of a broader tradition of liberation songs that served multiple purposes: building solidarity, expressing anger, maintaining morale during incredibly difficult times, and yes, sometimes being deliberately provocative because they had to. Think of it like this. If you've ever been in a situation where you felt completely powerless like the black people in apartheid times, you might understand the psychological relief that comes from at least being able to express that frustration, even though it's through words that sound harsh to outsiders. These songs were emotional outlets in a system that offend few other forms of expression. And here's where things get interesting. And by interesting, I mean complicated enough to give you a headache if you think about it too hard. So don't. Here's perspective one, the historical liberation expression. From this viewpoint, defended by President Ramaphosa and others, these phrases are historical artifacts of resistance. They argue that removing them from their historical context is like judging a Shakespearean play by the modern standards of political correctness. You miss the point entirely, right? The songs represent a specific moment in history when people were fighting for basic human rights and dignity. Supporters of this perspective often point out that many liberation movements worldwide have had similar expressions. The American Revolution gave us death to tyrants. The French Revolution had Calra, I think, which was towards aristocrats. Independent songs weren't exactly gentle towards British colonial rule. You know what I'm saying? On the other side, you have people, including many in South Africa's white minority communities, who argue that context is all well and good, but we're not living in 1985 anymore. In fact, they point out that South Africa is now a democracy where all citizens supposedly have equal rights, and continuing to sing songs that can be interpreted as threatening undermines the Rainbow Nation ideal. Now you get it. This perspective emphasizes that words have power, and in a country still dealing with high crime rates and racial tensions, language that can be interpreted as inciting violence is dangerous, regardless of its historical origins. They argue that just as we wouldn't accept other forms of hate speech in modern society, these expressions should also be reconsidered, right? And then there's a middle ground that says both sides have valid points, but we're missing the bigger picture. This group argues that the real issue isn't the songs themselves, but what they represent about South Africa's ongoing struggles with transformation, reconciliation, and building a truly non-racial society. They point out that focusing on specific phrases might be missing the forest for the trees. The real questions are about economic inequality, land reform, crime, and whether the post-apartheid promise has been fulfilled for all South Africans. I'll leave that one for you to answer. South Africa isn't alone in grappling how to handle controversial historical opinions in modern texts. Countries around the world face similar dilemmas, and the solutions are about as varied as the problems themselves. In the United States, debates rage over Confederate monuments, flags, and songs. Some argue they're important historical artifacts that shouldn't be erased, while others see them as ongoing symbols of oppression. The solution has been a patchwork of local decisions, ongoing court cases, and frankly, a lot of arguing. In Germany, Nazi symbols and expressions are strictly forbidden by law. But this approach works partly because there is broad social consensus about the moral clarity of that particular historical period, right? The situation becomes more complex when the historical moral lines aren't as clear-cut. Alright, I feel I'm slipping by this pillow. Okay. Whew. Aye. Wait. It's better. Okay. Wait. Alright. So the lesson seems that there's no one-size-fits-all solution to handling controversial historical opinions. What works depends on the specific history, the current social context, and the broader goals of society in question. And here's where we get the reality really tricky. You have a constructive conversation about something like this without everyone retreating to their respective corners and shouting past each other. No, that's probably not going to happen. First, there's the acknowledgement challenge. For dialogue to work, all parties need to acknowledge that the other sides have legitimate concerns, even if they don't agree with the solutions. This means white South Africans acknowledging the historical context and ongoing frustrations that give these songs meaning, while black South Africans acknowledge that the language can be genuinely frightening to people who see themselves as targets. Secondly, there's the empathy challenge. This requires people to genuinely try to understand experiences different from their own. For someone whose family was oppressed under apartheid, these songs might represent a connection to a proud tradition of resistance. For someone whose family has experienced farm attacks, the same words might feel like direct threats. Third, there's the future-focused challenge. Instead of getting stuck in debates about the past, the conversation needs to move toward questions about what kind of society South Africa really wants to be. Do these expressions help or hinder the goal of building a non-racial democracy? Are there ways to honor the liberation struggle while also promoting unity? So where does this leave us, ladies and gentlemen? Probably not with easy answers, because easy answers don't exist for complex social and historical issues. But maybe we can find some common ground in new places. Hear me out. Most South Africans, regardless of race, probably agree that they want to live in a safe, prosperous, and fair society. They want their children to have opportunities, they want crime to decrease, and they want to be proud of their country. Most people probably also agree that South Africa's liberation struggle was necessary and that apartheid was wrong. The disagreement is more about how to remember that struggle and what its symbols should mean in contemporary society. And most people probably agree that words and symbols matter. They shape how we think about ourselves and each other, and they can either bring people together or drive them apart. Maybe the answer isn't to definitely resolve whether these songs should or shouldn't be sung, but to create space for ongoing dialogue about what they mean and how they affect different communities. This might involve educational initiatives that help people understand the full historical context, community dialogues that bring different perspectives together, creative projects that explore how to honor liberation history while promoting unity, leadership that models how to discuss difficult topics without demonizing those who disagree, like myself. The goal wouldn't be to make everyone agree. That's probably impossible anyway. But to create a society where people can disagree respectfully and work together despite their differences. In the end, this controversy about liberation songs is really a story about a country still figuring out how to be itself. South Africa is barely 30 years into democracy, which sounds like a long time until you realize that many of the people involved in these decades and these debates lived through apartheid and the transition. The challenge is to honor the pain and struggle of the past without being trapped by it, to acknowledge legitimate concerns from all communities without paralyzing decision making, and to build a future that is better than the past without pretending the past did not happen. It's messy, it's complicated, and it doesn't fit into neat categories or simple solutions, but then again, that's probably true of most things worth doing. And South Africa can figure out how to navigate these waters with humor, empathy, and a commitment to the well-being of all its people. It might just provide a model for other societies grappling with similar challenges. After all, if a country can survive apartheid and build a democracy, surely it can figure out what to do with some things and about some songs. This is remembering that the goal isn't to win the argument, but to find a society where everyone can thrive. And maybe, just maybe, that is something worth singing about. This is the Summer Sambit, and I'll see you next time, because I speak in rhymes all the time. No phonies over here, my guy. Got everybody online trying to imitate me, and they know they ain't even fly. That's the sad thing, homie. Most of these people keep rapping my words online, but they know they couldn't even wipe my ass in the end. Oh well, you know the real deal anyway. It's this guy you see right here, the Summer Sambit. Make sure to subscribe and like and share with everyone you know. It helps me more than you think. Thank you for all the support. We're closing in on 50,000 subscribers. I know you haven't subscribed yet, so you might as well do it, because I'm watching you. Yes, this man who's wearing a shirt and a tie, basically all formal way, at night is watching you. Is it through the window? We don't know. But even if it was, I'd make sure you don't see me, right? None of that's gonna happen if you just subscribe. Do what you have to do. I do what I have to do to get to the top. I'm cream of the crop. They step up, they gon' get dropped.